The discovery. Commander Elena Vasquez stared at the sensor readings with growing confusion. Her exploration vessel, the Stellar Wanderer, had been mapping empty space for 3 weeks, cataloging asteroids and cosmic debris for the Empire's expansion records. This routine mission was supposed to be simple work, but the data streaming across her screens defied everything she knew about this forgotten corner of the galaxy. Dr. Marcus Chen, the ship's science officer, looked up from his analysis station with excitement gleaming in his dark eyes. His usually neat black hair was disheveled from hours of intense work, and his lab coat bore the stains of hasty meals eaten at his desk. Elena had served with Marcus for 5 years, and she had never seen him this animated about sensor readings. "The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases," Commander Marcus said, his voice barely containing his enthusiasm. "These patterns suggest advanced technology, but the power source is completely organic. It's as if someone has learned to harness living energy itself." Lieutenant Sarah Torres, their navigation officer, frowned as she studied the stellar cartography displays. Her weathered hands moved expertly across the controls, cross-referencing coordinates with Empire star charts. Sarah had spent 20 years mapping the galaxy's outer reaches, and her instincts about unexplored space were legendary among the fleet. "According to our records, this entire system should be uninhabited," Sarah said slowly. "The last survey probe came through here 80 years ago and found nothing but dead rocks orbiting a dying star. But look at these readings now. The third planet shows signs of massive terraforming, and those energy patterns are coming from structures in the upper atmosphere." Ensign David Kim, barely out of the academy and serving his first deep space assignment, monitored the communications array with nervous excitement. His young face was pale with concentration as strange signals filtered through his equipment. The patterns were hauntingly familiar, yet completely alien at the same time. "Commander, I'm picking up transmissions," David reported, his voice cracking slightly with tension. "The language structure sounds like old Earth standard, but the dialect is unlike anything I've heard before. It's as if someone took our language and let it evolve naturally for centuries without outside influence." Elena felt her heart rate increase as the implications became clear. 250 years ago, the colony ship New Horizon had vanished during its journey to establish humanity's farthest outpost. 8,000 colonists had simply disappeared without a trace, and despite years of searching, the Empire had found no evidence of their fate. The loss had become a legend, a cautionary tale about the dangers of pushing too far into unknown space. "Marcus, run a full spectrum analysis on those energy readings," Elena ordered, her command training taking over despite her growing excitement. "Sarah, plot a course for the third planet, but keep us at maximum sensor range. David, keep monitoring those transmissions and see if you can establish any kind of pattern or meaning." As the Stellar Wanderer adjusted course toward the mysterious planet, Elena studied the growing collection of data. The energy signatures were not only organic but showed signs of incredible sophistication. Whatever civilization existed on that world had learned to work with natural forces rather than simply exploiting them. The power levels were massive, yet they flowed in harmony with the planet's own electromagnetic field. Hours passed as they approached the system's heart. The planet itself was a jewel of blues and greens, with swirling cloud formations that seemed almost too perfect to be natural. But most remarkable were the structures floating in the upper atmosphere. Massive cities hung suspended in the sky, connected by bridges of what appeared to be crystallized energy. Gardens and forests grew along their surfaces, creating a blend of technology and nature that took Elena's breath away. "Commander," Marcus called out, his voice filled with wonder. "I'm detecting human DNA signatures in the atmospheric samples. But there's something else. The genetic markers show adaptation, evolution. These aren't just humans. They're humans who have changed, grown, become something more." Before Elena could respond, David's communications board erupted with activity. "Commander, we're being hailed. The signal is strong and clear, and it's definitely human in origin." On screen, Alina said, her heart pounding with anticipation. The face that appeared was unmistakably human, yet there was something different about the woman who smiled at them from across space. She appeared to be in her 40s, with silver-streaked brown hair and eyes that seemed to hold depths of wisdom far beyond her apparent years. Her clothing was simple but elegant, made from materials that seemed to shift color in the light. "Greetings, children of Earth," the woman said, her voice carrying a musical quality that seemed to resonate in their very bones. "I am Council Leader Maria Santos of Haven's Edge. We have been watching your approach with great interest and joy. It has been many years since we have seen our cousins from the stars." Alina felt her mouth go dry as she realized what they had found. "You're from the New Horizon," she managed to say. "You're the lost colonists." Maria's smile grew warmer, tinged with both pride and sadness. "We are their descendants, yes. Our ancestors arrived here 2.5 centuries ago, expecting to build a simple agricultural colony on a barren world. Instead, they found something wonderful beyond their wildest dreams. They found a way to live in harmony with forces they had never imagined possible." The screen shifted to show images of the floating cities in greater detail. Alina could see people moving through the structures, but their movement was strange, graceful, as if they were swimming through the air itself. Children played in gardens that hung suspended above the clouds, while adults tended to crystalline structures that pulsed with inner light. "How is this possible?" Maria asked, staring at the impossible vista. "How did your people build all this? How do those cities stay in the air?" Maria laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "We didn't build them in the way you might think. We grew them. This world taught our ancestors to work with living energy, to shape matter through cooperation rather than force. Our cities are alive in a sense, symbiotic organisms that we tend, and that tend to us in return." Dr. Chen leaned closer to the screen, his scientific mind racing with questions. "What kind of energy are you using? Our sensors show power levels that should be impossible to achieve without massive fusion reactors. We learned to work with the quantum field itself," Maria explained patiently. "This planet is rich in crystalline formations that can channel and amplify the zero-point energy that exists in all space. But the crystals only respond to those who approach them with respect, cooperation, and genuine care for all life. They cannot be forced or exploited. They must be partnered with." Sarah spoke up, her navigator's practical mind cutting through the wonder to ask the essential question. "Why didn't you try to contact the Empire? Why did you let everyone think the New Horizon was lost?" Maria's expression grew more serious, though her eyes remained kind. "Because our ancestors quickly learned that this way of life, this partnership with living energy, could not coexist with the Empire's methods. The crystals that give us the ability to shape matter and energy only work for those who have moved beyond the desire to conquer and control. They sense intention, and they will not serve those who seek power over others." She gestured towards something off-screen, and the image expanded to show more of their civilization. Alina saw workshops where people shaped metal and crystal with their bare hands, medical facilities where healers worked with energies that seemed to flow directly from their bodies, and schools where children learned to manipulate the very fabric of reality through focus and compassion. "Our ancestors tried to use the crystals for personal gain at first," Maria continued. "Some wanted to use them to build weapons, others to establish dominance over their fellow colonists. But the crystals simply would not respond. It took nearly 50 years for our people to understand that this technology, if you can call it that, only works when used for the benefit of all life. It forced our society to evolve, to become something better than what we had been." Alina felt overwhelmed by the implications of what she was seeing. If this technology could only be used by those who had genuinely embraced cooperation and peace, it represented a complete paradigm shift from everything the Empire stood for. The Empire's power was built on military might, resource extraction, and the ability to impose its will on others. This civilization represented something entirely different. Council Leader Santos, Alina said formally, "I request permission to visit Haven's Edge with a small diplomatic party. We have much to learn about what happened to the New Horizon colonists." Maria's smile returned, bright and welcoming. "Permission granted, Commander Vasquez. We have prepared a landing platform for your shuttle. But I must warn you, what you see here may challenge everything you believe about humanity's place in the universe. We have become something new, something that your empire might not understand or accept." As Elena prepared to lead her away team down to the surface, she wondered if Maria was right. The empire had built its power on the belief that humans were meant to dominate the galaxy, to take what they needed and impose their will on any who opposed them. But these descendants of the lost colonists had found a different path, one that seemed to offer unlimited potential through cooperation rather than conquest. The shuttle bay doors opened, and Alina looked down at the impossible cities floating in the clouds below. Whatever they found on Haven's Edge, she knew that nothing would ever be the same again. Humanity had found a new way to exist among the stars, and the discovery would change everything. Chief Engineer Robert Park met them at the landing platform, a tall man with gentle eyes and hands that seemed to glow with subtle energy. As he welcomed them to Haven's Edge, Alina realized they were about to learn what humans could become when they chose to work with the universe rather than fight against it. The choice. The landing platform felt warm and alive beneath Alina's feet, unlike the cold metal decking of Empire stations. The surface seemed to pulse gently with its own rhythm, and she realized it was literally alive, a living organism that had been shaped and guided to serve as a docking area. Gardens surrounded them on all sides, with plants that grew in impossible spirals and flowers that chimed like bells in the gentle breeze. Chief Engineer Robert Park stood waiting for them, and Alina was struck by how different he seemed from the engineers she knew in the Empire fleet. His clothes were simple but perfectly fitted, made from materials that seemed to breathe and flow with his movements. His dark skin had a subtle luminescence, and his eyes held a depth of peace that Alina had never seen in another human being. "Welcome to Haven's Edge," Robert said, his voice carrying the same musical quality they had heard from Maria Santos. "We are honored to have visitors from our distant cousins. Please, let me show you how we live." As they walked through the floating city, Alina's team remained silent, too amazed to speak. The architecture was unlike anything in their experience. Buildings grew from the platform itself, their walls curved and organic, with windows that seemed to be made of crystallized air. People moved through the streets with a grace that defied gravity, some walking normally while others seemed to glide just above the surface. Dr. Marcus Chen stopped abruptly when he saw a medical facility where healers worked with patients using nothing but their hands and focused intention. Through the transparent walls, they could see a woman placing her hands on a child's broken arm. Light flowed from her fingers, and within moments, the bone had completely healed. "That's impossible," Marcus whispered, his scientific worldview crumbling. "Bone regeneration takes weeks, even with our most advanced medical technology." Robert smiled gently. "Our healers work with the body's own natural ability to repair itself. The crystals don't grant magical powers, Dr. Chen. They simply amplify what is already within us. Humans have always had the potential to heal, to create, to work miracles. We just learned to unlock that potential through cooperation and selfless service." Lieutenant Sarah Torres watched in fascination as children played in a garden that hung suspended in midair. The young ones were laughing and chasing each other through three-dimensional space, running up walls and across ceilings as if gravity was merely a suggestion. One child, who couldn't have been more than 8 years old, was shaping flowers from pure light with her bare hands. "How do they do that?" Sarah asked, her practical navigator's mind struggling to process what she was seeing. "They're not fighting against natural forces," Robert explained. "They're working with them. Gravity, electromagnetic fields, the quantum foam that underlies all reality, these aren't obstacles to be overcome. They're partners to be understood and cooperated with. The children learn this naturally because they haven't yet been taught that it's impossible." Ensign David Kim was recording everything with his portable scanner, but he kept shaking his head in disbelief. "The energy readings don't make sense," he said. "According to our instruments, these people are generating power levels that should require massive industrial facilities, but they're doing it with what looks like meditation and focused intention." Robert led them to a workshop where artisans were creating complex machinery using methods that defied every principle of engineering Alina had ever learned. A woman was shaping metal by singing to it, her voice creating harmonic frequencies that caused the material to flow like liquid while retaining its strength. A man was growing circuits directly into crystalline matrices by touching them with focused thought. "This is our manufacturing center," Robert said with obvious pride. "We don't mine or smelt or force materials into shapes they don't want to take. Instead, we ask the atoms themselves to arrange in ways that serve our needs. It's faster, more efficient, and creates no waste because everything we make is in harmony with natural law." Dr. Chen approached one of the workers, a young man who was creating what appeared to be a complex computer processor by encouraging crystal formations to grow in specific patterns. "May I ask how you learned to do this?" Marcus asked, his voice filled with scientific curiosity and wonder. The young man looked up with a smile that radiated inner peace. "I listen to what the materials want to become," he said simply. "Everything in the universe has its own nature, its own purpose. When we try to force things to be what they're not, we create conflict and waste energy. But when we understand what something truly is and help it become its best self, magic happens." Alina felt a profound shift in her understanding as she watched these people work. The Empire's entire philosophy was built on the idea that humans must conquer nature. That strength came from the ability to impose one's will on the environment. But these colonists had discovered something entirely different. They had learned that true power came from understanding and cooperation. As they toured the city, Alina began to see how every aspect of Haven's Edge society reflected this philosophy. There were no police because there was no crime, no military because there were no external threats, and no poverty because resources were shared freely based on need rather than accumulated based on power. Maria Santos joined them as they visited a school where children learn not just facts and figures, but how to sense the interconnectedness of all life. The students were engaged in what looked like meditation, but Alina could see complex mathematical equations and scientific principles flowing in patterns of light around them. "Your educational system is remarkable," Alina said to Maria. "How do you teach such advanced concepts to such young children?" "We don't teach them," Maria replied with a gentle laugh. "We help them remember what they already know. Every human soul contains the blueprint for understanding the deepest truths of the universe. Our job is simply to create conditions where that natural wisdom can emerge." Alina watched as a group of 10-year-olds solved engineering problems that would challenge the Empire's best scientists. They'd worked together seamlessly, each child contributing their unique perspective while remaining focused on the collective goal. There was no competition, no individual glory-seeking, just pure collaborative intelligence at work. The tour continued for hours, and with each new wonder, Alina felt her old worldview cracking and reshaping itself. These people had found a way to live that was not only sustainable but actually enhanced all life around them. Their technology worked in harmony with natural systems instead of disrupting them. Their society had eliminated scarcity not by taking more from the environment, but by learning to need less and share everything. As evening approached, they gathered in a central plaza where the entire community came together for what Robert called the daily reflection. Citizens of all ages sat in comfortable silence, and Alina could feel waves of peace and contentment flowing through the gathering. These people genuinely cared for each other in a way that the competitive Empire society had never achieved. Suddenly, David's communications equipment erupted with urgent signals. "Commander," he said, his voice tight with tension, "I'm receiving transmissions from Empire Command. Admiral Blake is en route with a full battle fleet. They'll be here within 6 hours." Alina felt her stomach drop as she realized what this meant. Admiral Harrison Blake was known throughout the fleet as a ruthless commander who believed that the Empire's destiny was to dominate the galaxy through superior firepower. If he saw the advanced technology of Haven's Edge, he would certainly attempt to seize it for military purposes. Maria's expression remained calm, but Alina could see sadness in her eyes. "We were afraid this might happen," Maria said quietly. "When your people return to report what they found here, there will be those who see only a resource to be exploited rather than a lesson to be learned. You have to defend yourselves," Alina said urgently. "Admiral Blake commands 30 ships of the line. He has enough firepower to level your entire civilization." Robert shook his head with gentle certainty. "We cannot defend ourselves through violence. The moment we use our abilities to harm others, we lose access to them entirely. The crystals that give us these capabilities only respond to peaceful intention. We literally cannot use them as weapons." "Then you'll be slaughtered," Sarah said bluntly. "Blake doesn't negotiate. He takes what he wants and destroys anything that resists." "Perhaps," Maria said with surprising serenity, "but we believe there is another way. Commander Vasquez, you and your crew have seen what we've built here. You understand that this technology cannot be taken by force or used for selfish purposes. You could help us show Admiral Blake that there is a different path forward." Alina felt the weight of an impossible choice settling on her shoulders. Her oath of loyalty to the Empire demanded that she support Admiral Blake's mission. But everything she had seen on Haven's Edge suggested that humanity's greatest potential lay not in conquest, but in cooperation. Dr. Chen stepped forward, his face set with determination. "Commander, I volunteer to stay here and study their methods. What they've achieved represents the greatest scientific breakthrough in human history. We can't let it be destroyed by fear and ignorance." Sarah nodded her agreement. "These people have found a way to live without war, without scarcity, without the endless conflicts that plague the Empire. That's worth protecting." Even young David, despite his nervousness, stood with his crewmates. "They showed us children who can heal with a touch and create beauty from pure thought. How can we stand by and watch that be destroyed?" Elena looked around at the peaceful city floating in the clouds, at the people who had welcomed them with open hearts, despite knowing the danger the Empire represented. She thought about the children playing in gardens of light and the healers who served others without thought of reward. She thought about everything the Empire claimed to stand for and everything these people had actually achieved. When Admiral Blake's fleet arrived, they found Alina and her crew standing with the colonists, ready to demonstrate that humanity's greatest strength had always been its capacity for growth, for choosing cooperation over conflict, for building something better than what came before. The future of human civilization hung in the balance, but for the first time in centuries, there was genuine hope that humanity might choose the path of wisdom rather than the path of war. The descendants of the New Horizon had shown that humans could evolve beyond their primitive instincts, and now it was time to see if the rest of humanity was ready to follow their example. As Admiral Blake's ships approached Haven's Edge, Alina made her choice. She would stand with those who had chosen to build rather than destroy, to heal rather than harm, to show the galaxy what humans could become when they embraced their highest potential. The Empire would have to decide whether it wanted to learn from Haven's Edge or lose the chance forever. But Alina had seen the future of humanity, and it was more beautiful than anything she had ever imagined possible.